Hello and welcome back to the Recruitment Coach podcast with me, Martin Hodgkinson. And today we're going to be talking about a dangerous myth that's holding your agency back. There's a belief in recruitment that is still alive and well, and that is that great recruiters are just naturally good at sales. And it's easy to fall into this belief because it justifies underperformance and it justifies having people leaving your business. So if somebody isn't performing well and you label them as just not naturally good at sales, then it's just justifying their lack of ability, and it's not putting the onus on you, it's putting it on them. And when somebody leaves the business because they're not doing well, you can just get into that mindset of thinking, well, they just didn't have it, they weren't good enough. Recruitment's not for them. And it's putting everything on them. And it's hard to do, but we should be putting it on ourselves and thinking, I didn't help them. I wasn't good enough at training them up. But nobody wants to do that, so it's easier to get into that belief of putting it on them and just thinking they weren't naturally good at sales. But what if we're wrong? What if this belief is wrong? How much damage are we doing to our agencies and our recruiters? So today we're going to dig into this myth, and we're going to look at a bit of the nature and nurture debate. And then we're going to look at some practical things that you can do to start improving the BD skills of your agency. So why do people start believing this? Well, it's because sales is often thought of as people that have got charisma and confidence and the gift of the gab. They know what to say and when to say it and how to say it. These are all things that feel innate. They feel natural in some people because other people just can't do it, right? And we remember those people that were really good at selling. We remember those people that were just born to sell, and everything they do, every pitch they do is really good and it just works, right? But we forget the journey they took to get there. We forget the amount of time that they've put into honing their pitch and their style and understanding the prospect and working on objections and how they can manage them and navigate their way through that sales process. And we think about this a lot with our top billers, especially when new people come into the business. They look at your top biller and they just see that everything they do seems to turn to gold. They're always making placements. They're always billing big money. They're always bringing in new clients. Every meeting they do feels polished. They always seem to know what to say and when to say it and how to say it. And they know who to go to. And they just seem to get things done. So as a new recruiter, you sit there and think, God, they're really good. I wish I could do that. Even as a recruiter that's not performing very well and has been doing it for a while, you just think, oh, I wish I could be that good. Having this mindset of being naturally good at sales or naturally good at recruitment holds them back and makes them think, well, I'll never get there. I can't do it. I'm not naturally good at it. And it's easier to then think, well, they're just naturally good at it. That's why they're that good. And I can't get there because I'm not natural. So it's almost like a self-preservation. But having these thoughts and these mindsets just creates that false binary that you've either got it or you don't. And having this in your business it's really detrimental because it basically is making you reliant on those few people that are naturally good at sales while everybody else just about scrapes through. But if one of those people, say you've got three of them, one of those leaves, one of them gets promoted into a non-billing role or partial billing manager role, and one of them has a bit of a bad month or quarter, your agency is really struggling, right? And having this belief is stopping those other people, those, let's call them bench players, from stepping up and doing what needs to be done at that time and becoming the big biller of the month or the quarter, because they just don't think they can do it, and you don't think they can do it. Nobody else thinks they can do it because they just don't have it. So having this fixed mindset just stops those recruiters that could thrive and makes them either never really hit their potential or leave the industry completely. So if you believe that great salespeople are born and you don't invest in building on them, then you're missing a huge opportunity. So when we start looking at this nature versus nurture debate, you can look at personality traits. So extroversion and resilience and confidence. But yeah, they can help, but they're not everything. I know plenty of people that are great recruiters, top billers that aren't extroverted or battle with confidence. But you can build on those personality traits, right? I had to put a lot of work in when I was younger and growing up. I wasn't particularly confident. Now I'm pretty confident. When you talk to people who know me, they would say I'm confident. I've worked on that. So you can build on these traits. But when you look at the skills of BD, having conversations, questioning, and positioning, and objection handling, the cadence, the tone, the speed, everything to do with a business development conversation. These are all skills that we can work on. And sure, somebody might not be great at them to start with, but we can work with them and we can make those skills better slowly, step by step, until they become polished and great. So think of the top performers that you admire in your business, that you think actually they're amazing. When they came into the business or when they started recruitment, do you think they were that good? Of course they weren't. They took time to develop to where they are now. They probably weren't particularly good. So allowing your recruiters to believe that one day they could get there will have such a huge positive impact on your business. And just think, some of the other skills like sourcing, that's not natural. We don't naturally know how to do Boolean searching. We learn how to do Boolean searching. We learn how to format things. It's just the same with BD. So how can we start to build quality BDers in our agency? So a couple of different things we can do. So we can normalize that learning curve. We can frame BD as a skill, not an innate ability. And just tell stories about when your top recruiters weren't great when they first started, or times where they've really struggled and they've had to learn new skills and overcome. So I was at an agency once, and in front of the whole business, there was 100 plus people there. They were talking about who the next top biller could be, because he was talking about when he started and one of the directors was a top biller, then he was a top biller for multiple years, and then somebody else came in and became a top biller. Now it's somebody else. And he was saying it can always change. So just because you're sat in a room and there's 5 people here who are always the top billers, it doesn't mean that you can never be there. And he started to talk about these recruiters when they first started. And he got them to all talk about how much they made in the first year, how much they billed. And these are people that are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, even 900k billers, maybe even a million biller, right? So they were billing, say, 30, 40, 50k in their first year, but now they're up in the 6, 7 digits. So telling stories about that just allows those people to see the journey, start to realize that they didn't come into the business and started billing massive numbers. They started right at the bottom and worked their way up and honed their skills and their craft. So the second thing we can do is create a structure and a rhythm. So almost reverse engineer everything right back to sort of daily and weekly BD tasks that they need to do, habits that they need to create. How many BD calls do they need to do a week? How many new people do they need to add onto the system? How many meetings do they need to book? This sort of stuff. Bring it right down to these smaller numbers and make sure they're doing that over and over again and consistently hitting those small targets, because that is what's going to give them the exposure to all these different situations and these situations that are going to help them develop their skills. It's going to give them the reps to practice and give them clear playbooks and frameworks to use. But don't just let them go off and see if they can do it or not and see what sticks to the wall. Give them actual structure and frameworks and methodologies to follow and implement for repeatable success. The third thing would be invest in coaching, whether it's an external person or you're investing in your own ability or somebody else in the business to become that coach or that mentor. So with these coaches, whoever it is, they can focus on the messaging and cool reviews, so the cool coaching and mindset, and every single skill that we need to be good at BD. And then regularly have those feedback conversations. So creating those feedback loops of talking about what worked, what didn't work, why things worked or why they didn't work, how we can adjust them to get more success next time. Just keep it going so they're honing those skills. A big part that you can do on top of all of this is building that psychological safety. Make them feel that it is okay to fail. Take the pressure off. Because a lot of people feel like they can't try things in case they make a mess of it or they get reprimanded for it. A lot of what we do in recruitment is trial and error. It comes from trial and error. So allow them to try things. And if they mess up, they mess up. Brush it off. Have a laugh with it. We used to have a wooden spoon trophy that every time somebody did something stupid or messed up, you got that trophy until the next person did it. And everyone was getting it. It moved around multiple times a day because we're all trying things, we're all doing different things. And sometimes it works really well and it's amazing. Other times you fall flat on your face and you look ridiculous. But we felt safe to do that. Just with that, give them that time and help them in that time to reflect on the day of what did work, what didn't work. Why did they fall flat on their face that time? Or why did that pitch or that cold call open actually work? What were the reasonings behind it? And then the last thing you can do is reward consistency, especially early in the journey. With those small targets we've set, if they're consistently hitting those, if you've given them everything they could need, you've given them playbooks that work, strategies and methodologies and techniques that work in a market that you can have success in, there's no reason why they won't become successful. So reward the consistency of hitting those small daily and weekly targets, because that's ultimately what's going to get them to become successful. Reward every time they meet a new milestone, no matter how big or small it is. It doesn't have to be a massive reward. It can literally just be a shout out, or it can be just having a chat with them and saying, you know what, you're doing amazing. You're doing really, really well, really proud of you. Something really simple that just makes them feel good and makes them feel like, you know what, I'm on the right path. So that form of culture and process and all these little goals and those mindsets, they really, really help turn some of these struggling or middling recruiters into great, successful recruiters. So if you want a high-performing sales team, stop looking for naturals. Start building confident, capable recruiters. Bring in people that have the potential to be good, who have the base level skills. Create a development strategy to allow them to grow those skills and build on those skills. Invite reflection. Invite innovation. Let people try and fail and encourage them to reframe L&D, so development and coaching, as a long-term growth lever, not just part of onboarding or process when they're not doing very well. So if you need help with any of this, if any of this is resonating with you, drop me a message. I'd love to have a chat with you, see what we can do to help you on your journey of creating successful recruiters, growing your agency. So add me on LinkedIn, follow me on TikTok at Recruitment Coach Martin. Until next time, have a great one.